The explosion ripped through the wedding reception like the hand of an angry god. Crystal chandeliers shattered into 1,000 glittering daggers that rained down on screaming guests. Imani cross-hit the marble floor hard, the impact driving air from her lungs, her custom emerald evening gown torn and splattered with blood that might or might not be hers. Her ears rang with that horrible high-pitched whine that comes after violence, the kind that makes the world feel distant and unreal. She rolled onto her side, gasping, tasting copper and champagne, and looked up through the smoke and chaos. That's when she saw him. Malik, her 16-year-old brother, standing frozen in the doorway where the mahogany doors had been blown off their hinges. His face was a mask of pure shock, brown eyes wide and uncomprehending, taking in the scene before him like a nightmare he couldn't wake from. Armed men in tactical gear, bodies on the ground, blood pooling on expensive marble, and his sister, the woman he'd known his whole life, rising from the wreckage with the cold efficiency of someone who'd been through this before. Their eyes met across the smoking wreckage, and in that single suspended moment, Imani knew with absolute certainty that everything was about to get so much worse. Because Malik had just seen who she really was, what she'd become, and there was no taking that back. Before we go any further, besties, if you haven't watched part 1 yet, stop right here. Go watch it. The link is in the description. Trust me, you're going to need that context for what comes next. Go watch part 1, come back, and let me take you into the fire. For those of you who are already caught up, welcome back. You thought part 1 was intense? You haven't seen anything yet. Now let me take you back to where we really left off, 3 months before that explosion, to the moment when Imani stopped being a victim and started being something much more dangerous. 3 months earlier, Imani stood in Ray Yoon's office with adrenaline still singing through her veins like electricity. The leather chair where Sang-mi had sat just hours before was empty now. The woman herself hauled away to a secure location after Imani had exposed her as the traitor feeding information to their enemy. The room smelled of expensive bourbon and the faint metallic tang of fear that never quite left spaces where serious decisions were made. Ray stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, hands in the pockets of his tailored black pants, looking out at Chicago's glittering skyline like a king surveying his troubled kingdom. His mother, Mrs. Yoon Wayung, sat in the corner with perfect posture despite her 70 years, watching them both with those sharp, intelligent eyes that never missed a detail. The silence stretched taut as a wire. You were right about her, Ray finally said without turning around. His voice was different than she'd heard before, less cold calculation and more something she couldn't quite name. Respect maybe, or the beginning of it. Sang-mi, my own cousin. My mother was right about you. Imani didn't know what to say to that. 3 months ago, she'd been delivering fried chicken at 3 in the morning, one emergency away from complete financial collapse. Now she was standing in a crime lord's office being praised for exposing a traitor in an organization she never asked to join. The dissonance was dizzying. Mrs. Yoon stood with the grace that came from decades of commanding rooms. You have good instincts, child. Instincts can be taught, but intuition? That's a gift. We'll need more of it in the months ahead. Viper won't take Sang-mi's exposure lightly. What happens to her? Imani heard herself ask. Part of her didn't want to know. Part of her needed to. That's not your concern, Ray said, turning to face her finally. In the city lights behind him, he looked almost otherworldly, beautiful and dangerous in equal measure. What is your concern is the wedding. 3 months from now. We'll need everything perfect. No more vulnerabilities. No more surprises. The wedding. Right. The political marriage that would cement her place in this organization, make her transformation from captive to participant complete and irreversible. Imani's phone buzzed in her clutch. She almost ignored it, but the specific vibration pattern made her glance down. A text from Malik. Sis, you're not going to believe this. Got into Northwestern early admission. Engineering program. Full scholarship. Can I come visit Chicago? Want to see where you're living now. So proud of you for landing that job. Love you. The words blurred. Her chest tightened. Malik. Sweet. Brilliant Malik who'd worked so hard, who'd trusted her to be the person he thought she was, who wanted to visit, to see her new life, to meet the people she worked with. Her two worlds, previously kept carefully separate by 300 miles and countless lies, were suddenly hurtling toward collision. Something wrong. Mrs. Yoon's voice cut through her panic. No, Imani lied, shoving the phone back in her clutch. Just my brother. Got into college. Good news. Northwestern, Mrs. Yoon said, and it wasn't a question because of course she knew everything. Excellent school. You must be very proud. Will he visit? The trap in the question was obvious. Say yes, and she'd have to explain why she was keeping family away. Say no, and reveal she was maintaining the separation deliberately. Imani met the old woman's eyes and saw the test there, sharp and clear. Eventually, Imani said carefully, when things are more settled, when I can explain everything properly. Mrs. Yoon's smile was thin and knowing. Lies always surface, child. The question is never if, but when. Better to control when than to let chaos decide. Think about that. She glided from the room like a ghost, leaving Imani alone with Ray and the weight of impossible choices. Ray moved to his desk, poured 2 glasses of bourbon without asking if she wanted one, and handed her one anyway. She took it because refusing felt like weakness, and she was tired of being weak. "My mother's right," he said, surprising her. "Secrets are time bombs. I kept my father's death from people for 3 days once, trying to control the narrative. By the time I revealed it, the damage was worse than if I'd been honest from the start. Your brother will find out eventually. Better on your terms than someone else's. Easy for you to say. You were raised in this. I'm still figuring out how to explain to my family that I married a crime lord to keep them alive." Something flickered in Ray's eyes, there and gone too fast to name. "You think I wanted this? I was 17 when they killed my father. Shot him in front of me in our own home. I had a college acceptance letter on my desk. MIT. Engineering, like your brother. I was going to build bridges, design buildings, make something that lasted. Instead, I inherited a war." He drained his glass in one swallow. "We don't choose the lives that choose us. We just decide how we survive them." It was the most honest thing he'd ever said to her. Imani looked at this man she was supposed to marry in 3 months, this stranger who held her family's lives in his hands, and saw something she hadn't expected to see. Someone who understood. Someone who'd also been forced into a shape they never asked for. "I need to keep Malik away until after the wedding," she said. "Can you help me with that?" "Already done. I'll have my people monitor his movements. If he books a flight to Chicago, we'll know. We can create delays, complications. Buy you time." He refilled his glass. "But Imani? My mother's right. Time just delays the inevitable. At some point, you'll have to choose which world you're living in." She left his office that night knowing he was right. Knowing that every day she delayed was just another lie stacked on top of the foundation of lies she'd built since that night at the gas station. But she pushed it down, locked it away, and focused on what came next. The wedding. The transformation from Ray's political prop to something that actually mattered in this organization. From victim to participant to something she didn't have a name for yet. The next 3 months blurred together in a haze of preparation and metamorphosis. Mrs. Yoon became her constant shadow, teaching her things that felt like survival skills disguised as etiquette. How to read a room and identify threats before they materialized. How to speak to Korean elders with the proper respect that earned their consideration. How to sit in meetings with men who dealt death as casually as business deals and make them see her as more than Ray's American acquisition. How to recognize the difference between loyalty and fear, and why the former was always more valuable than the latter. "Power without wisdom is just violence with better furniture," Mrs. Yoon said one afternoon as they reviewed financial statements in her private study. Outside the windows, Chicago stretched gray and cold under February clouds. Anyone can kill. Any fool with a gun can inspire fear. But to build something that lasts? That requires vision, strategy, the ability to see 3 moves ahead while your opponent is still planning their next step. Imani studied the older woman, really looked at her. Mrs. Yoon was dying. She'd hidden it well, but Imani had been 2 semesters from a nursing degree before her mother's illness derailed everything. She recognized the signs, the slight yellowing in the whites of her eyes, the way she sat more carefully than before, protecting her right side. The medication bottles she thought were hidden but weren't. "How long?" Imani asked quietly. Mrs. Yoon's expression didn't change. "Perceptive. 6 months, perhaps 8. Liver cancer. Metastasized. I've known for a year." "Does Ray know?" "He suspects. I haven't confirmed. He has enough burdens without adding my mortality to the list." She closed the ledger with decisive finality. "Which is why your transformation is so important. When I'm gone, he'll need someone he can actually trust. Someone with the intelligence to advise him and the courage to tell him when he's wrong. Someone who isn't trying to manipulate him for personal gain." "You manipulated me into this position from the start," Imani pointed out. "Yes, but I was manipulating you toward your own strength, not exploiting your weakness. There's a difference. You had potential rotting away in poverty and debt. I gave you an opportunity to become something more. What you do with that opportunity, that's entirely up to you." The wedding preparation consumed everything. Designers appeared with fabric samples and sketches. The ceremony would fuse Korean and Nigerian traditions in a way that honored both sides of Ray's heritage while making a political statement about unity. Every detail was calculated. Every choice had ramifications Imani was only beginning to understand. Meanwhile, she kept Malik at bay with an increasingly elaborate web of lies. Her new job required security clearance processing that was taking time. She couldn't have visitors during the probationary period. She'd come visit him in Atlanta instead, maybe spring break. Each lie felt like a small cut, the kind that didn't seem like much until you realized you were bleeding from 1,000 places at once. Training intensified, and Kim drilled her every morning at 5, teaching her not just how to fight, but how to think like someone who expected violence. "Defense is good," he said, sweating alongside her in the private gym. "But anticipation is better. You need to see the attack before it comes. Feel it in your bones." She learned to shoot with precision that surprised even Marcus, the massive Nigerian captain who'd been skeptical of her from the start. You've got steady hands, he admitted after she put 10 rounds through the center of the target at 25 yards. That's surgical training coming through. Medicine and violence aren't so different. Both require calm under pressure. That's a disturbing philosophy, Imani said, setting the gun down carefully. Welcome to the disturbing world. He studied her with those intense eyes. My daughter Amara talks about you, you know. Says you're different from the other people in this organization. Says you actually listen when you give her advice on that college essay. She doesn't know what you really do here, but she knows you're important. Don't make me regret trusting you with her. The weight of that trust settled on Imani's shoulders like armor. Marcus was trusting her with his daughter's future. His most precious thing. The responsibility terrified her. The night before the wedding, Imani stood in her room at the mansion, looking at herself in the mirror. The woman staring back was unrecognizable from the exhausted delivery driver who'd taken a bullet 4 months ago. Her hair was styled by professionals into an elaborate updo. Her skin glowed from treatments she'd never even heard of before. She wore a silk robe that cost more than her old car. And behind her, reflected in the mirror, was the wedding dress. Custom-made, a fusion of Western and Korean design, ivory silk with jade embroidery, a masterpiece that represented everything she'd become. Beautiful and expensive and completely foreign to who she used to be. A knock at the door. Come in. Ray entered, surprising her. They'd barely been alone since that night in his office 3 months ago. He wore a simple black shirt and dark jeans, his hair slightly mussed from running his hands through it. Can't sleep either? Thought grooms weren't supposed to see the bride before the wedding. We're not a normal bride and groom. He moved to stand beside her, both of them facing the mirror, looking at their reflections. Tomorrow changes things. You know that, right? Once we do this, once you're officially family, there's no ambiguity about your position. You'll be a target. People will test you. Try to find weaknesses. Use you against me. You trying to give me an out? Little late for that. No. Just making sure you understand what you're choosing. Because it is a choice now. You could walk away tonight. I'd make sure you and your family stayed safe. Set you up somewhere new. You've proven yourself enough that I'd honor that. Imani turned to look at him directly instead of through the mirror. Would you? Really? Or is this another test? He met her eyes, and for once there was no calculation there, no strategy. Just honesty. I don't know. Maybe both. Everything's a test in this world. But I'm trying to tell you that if you go through with this, I need you to be all in. Not performing, not pretending. Actually committed. Because what's coming is going to require both of us at full strength. What's coming? War with Viper. It's inevitable now. He knows we exposed his spy network. He knows we're consolidating power. He'll strike soon, and when he does, it'll be brutal. I need to know you won't break. Imani thought about the woman she'd been 4 months ago. Broke, powerless, invisible. She thought about the woman she was becoming. Dangerous, calculated, forged in fire she never asked for. I won't break, she said, and meant it. I've come too far to break now. Something shifted in his expression. Not quite a smile, but close. Then tomorrow we become partners. Real partners, not just people forced together by circumstance. He left, and Imani was alone again with the woman in the mirror. She touched the glass, her reflection touching back, and wondered if her mother would recognize her anymore. Wondered if she recognized herself. The wedding day arrived with Chicago's rare spring sunshine, the kind that felt like a blessing or a warning depending on how you looked at it. 500 guests filled the grand ballroom of the Drake Hotel, a neutral territory that belonged to no single family. Korean elders in traditional hanbok sat on one side, their faces carved from stone and ancient judgment. Nigerian families in vibrant agbada and geli filled the other side, colorful and watchful. In the middle, the space where two worlds were supposed to meet and somehow become one. Imani walked down the aisle alone. She'd insisted on that. Her father and Malik were in Atlanta, safely distant from this performance, and she wouldn't dishonor them by having someone else stand in. Mrs. Yoon had approved. A woman who walks alone walks with strength, she'd said. Let them see you need no one to deliver you. Ray waited at the altar in traditional Korean hanbok fused with Nigerian agbada design, a visual representation of the empire he'd inherited and expanded. When their eyes met, something passed between them that felt almost real, almost like a choice instead of a necessity. The ceremony was conducted in 3 languages: Korean, Igbo, English. Imani had spent weeks memorizing her vows in Korean, working with tutors until the sounds came naturally. When she spoke them, she saw shock ripple through the Korean elders. She'd honored them, shown respect, made herself impossible to dismiss as just another American girl who didn't understand. The Nigerian side erupted in approval when she spoke a blessing in Igbo that Tobias had taught her. Not perfect, her accent still wrong in places, but the effort visible and genuine. Marcus caught her eye from the crowd and nodded once. Approval. Acceptance. When they exchanged rings, Ray's hand was steady. Hers trembled slightly, and he squeezed her fingers once, a gesture of reassurance that no one else could see. The officiant pronounced them married. Ray kissed her, professional and brief, but his lips were warm and his hand on her waist felt almost protective. The reception was a careful dance of diplomacy and danger. Imani worked the room with Mrs. Yoon at her side initially, learning how to read the subtle signs of alliance and threat in every conversation. An elder who bowed too shallowly. A lieutenant who held eye contact a beat too long. A wife who smiled, but whose eyes remained cold. Every interaction was a test, and Imani felt herself passing or failing in real time. "You're doing well," Mrs. Yoon murmured as they moved between tables. "But watch out for Elder Kim at table 7. He supported Sangmi's father for leadership years ago. He'll see you as an insult to tradition." Sure enough, when Imani approached Elder Kim's table with traditional tea service, an honor meant to show respect, he barely acknowledged her. "American wife," he said in Korean, clearly not expecting her to understand. "Ray disgraces his mother's lineage." Imani poured his tea with perfect form, then responded in careful Korean. "Elder Kim, I understand your concern, but I saved Mrs. Yoon's life with my blood. In our traditions, that creates family bonds that transcend nationality. I hope to earn your respect with time and actions, not just words." His eyebrows rose. Around the table, the other elders looked at each other with new assessment. Elder Kim picked up his tea, studied her face, and drank. When he set the cup down, he bowed his head slightly. Acceptance. Grudging, but real. Mrs. Yoon's hand touched her elbow briefly as they moved away. Pride. Imani felt something warm in her chest that had nothing to do with the champagne. She was doing this. Actually doing this. Becoming someone who mattered in this impossible world. The speeches came later, after dinner. Marcus spoke for the Nigerian side, his deep voice carrying authority. For months ago, this woman was a stranger. Today she's family. Not because of ceremony or politics, but because she's proven herself. She's got steel in her spine and wisdom in her head. "Anyone who doubts that will answer to me." A Korean elder spoke next, more measured but equally important. "Mrs. Yoon has chosen well. The young bride honors tradition while bringing new strength. This is how families grow." Then Imani stood, her heart hammering, and gave her own speech. She'd written it herself, worked on it for weeks. She spoke in English first, then Korean, then Igbo, switching between languages to include everyone. She talked about family, about loyalty, about the responsibility that came with trust, about how she'd learned that strength wasn't about never being afraid, but about acting despite fear, about how two different worlds could create something stronger than either alone. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. Real applause, not polite obligation. She looked at Ray and saw something in his face she'd never seen before. Wonder, maybe. Like he was seeing her truly for the first time and being surprised by what he found. That night, their first as husband and wife, felt different from the performance of the day. They had a suite at the Drake, privacy they hadn't had since this arrangement began. Imani sat on the edge of the massive bed, still in her wedding dress, exhausted and wired simultaneously. Ray emerged from the bathroom having changed into casual clothes. He looked younger out of the formal wear, almost vulnerable. "You were remarkable today. I've never seen Elder Kim actually approve of anyone in less than 5 years. I was terrified the entire time." "Good. Fear keeps you sharp." He sat in the chair across from her, maintaining distance. "We should talk about what comes next. The real marriage, not just the political one." "What do you mean?" "I mean that we're partners now. Actually, not just in name. That means we need to figure out what that looks like." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I'm not good at this. At personal connections. My father raised me to see relationships as transactions, and my mother taught me that trust was a luxury we couldn't afford. But you're different. You've proven you're not using this position for personal gain. You've earned my trust. That's rare enough that I don't want to waste it on pretending. Now let me pause right here and ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to be vulnerable with someone who could destroy you? Where opening up felt more dangerous than any physical threat? That's where Imani is right now. She's married to a man who could kill her with a word, but he's offering something that might be more dangerous than violence. He's offering real partnership, real trust. Drop a comment if you've ever had to trust someone when everything told you not to. Because what Imani does next determines everything. Hit that subscribe button as you do so. "What do you want from me?" Imani asked carefully. Real answer, not political answer. Ray was quiet for a long moment. "Honesty. Partnership. Someone who tells me when I'm wrong instead of just agreeing because I'm dangerous. My father surrounded himself with yes men and it got him killed. I won't make that mistake." He met her eyes. "And maybe, eventually, something that looks like actual marriage instead of strategic alliance. But that's not a demand. It's a possibility I'm leaving open." "I don't love you," Imani said, because honesty required it. "I know. I don't love you either. But I respect you, which in this world might be more valuable. Love makes people stupid. Respect makes them strong. That's a bleak philosophy. It's a survival philosophy." But, he paused, seeming to choose words carefully. "It doesn't mean we can't build something real. Just that we build it on foundation of choice and respect, instead of emotion and obligation. Can you work with that?" Imani thought about it. Really thought about it. This man was offering her genuine partnership in an empire built on violence and fear. He was offering her power, real power, but also responsibility for how that power was used. He was offering her a future that was nothing like what she'd imagined for herself, but might be something she could actually live with. I can work with that, she said. But I have conditions. Name them. My family stays protected and ignorant. They don't get pulled into this world. Ever. That's non-negotiable. Agreed. What else? I don't participate in anything that targets innocence. I understand the violence that comes with this world, but I won't be part of hurting people who aren't in the game. Children, families, civilians, they're off limits for me. Ray nodded slowly. That's already our code. Anyone who violates it answers to me personally. What else? I want a real role. Not decorative. If I'm going to be part of this organization, I want responsibility and authority that matches the risk I'm taking. I want to actually matter. A smile ghosted across his face. You already matter. But yes, you'll have operational authority. Starting next week, you'll join the strategic planning meetings. You've proven you think differently than the rest of us, and that perspective is valuable. Anything else? One more thing. If I ever want out, if I can't live with who I'm becoming, you let me go. Maybe that makes me a liability. Maybe that's not realistic. But I need to know I'm choosing this every day, not just trapped here. Ray stood, walked to the window, looked out at Chicago's nighttime skyline. When he turned back, his expression was unreadable. I can't promise that. Once you're in this deep, leaving becomes complicated. People we've dealt with, families we've negotiated with, enemies we've made, they don't care if you retire. You'll always be a target, always be connected to this world. The best I can promise is that if you want distance, I'll give you as much as safely possible. But complete freedom? That ended the night you took that bullet. For both of us. The honesty hurt more than a lie would have. But Imani appreciated it. At least she knew exactly where she stood. Then I guess we're both trapped, she said. We're both free in the only way that matters. Free to choose how we survive our cage. He moved toward the door. I'll sleep in the other room tonight. Give you space to process. Tomorrow we go back to the mansion and start the real work. But tonight, just rest. You've earned it. He left, and Imani sat alone in her wedding dress in a hotel suite that cost more than her mother's entire medical bills, thinking about choices and cages and what it meant to be free in a prison of your own making. The next 3 months blurred together in a haze of transformation and consolidation. Imani threw herself into the work with an intensity that surprised even her. She attended every strategic meeting, taking notes in the margins and asking questions that made hardened criminals pause and reconsider their plans. She learned the financial side of the organization from Mrs. Yoon, understanding how money flowed through legitimate businesses and underground networks in patterns that looked random but were actually carefully orchestrated. She discovered she had a gift for seeing patterns others missed. When reviewing security footage after a shipment went missing, she noticed that the same car appeared in the background of 3 different locations over 6 weeks. Marcus had dismissed it as coincidence. Imani had them track the vehicle. It led to a low-level runner who'd been skimming product for months, feeding it to Viper's people. The runner was dealt with quietly, and Marcus started listening to her observations with real respect instead of polite tolerance. You see things, he told her after she'd identified a potential police informant based on behavioral changes during interrogations. Most people look but don't see. You actually pay attention. Medical training, Imani explained. You learn to notice small changes in patients. Breathing patterns, eye movement, skin tone. People's bodies tell the truth even when they're lying. She used those same observational skills during negotiations with rival families. Could read when someone was bluffing, when they were genuinely afraid, when they were preparing to make a move. Ray started bringing her to meetings specifically for that purpose, sitting her beside him as his eyes and ears for the unspoken dynamics in the room. Their partnership evolved into something that worked. Not romantic, not yet, but functional in a way that felt almost comfortable. They developed a rhythm. Morning briefings over coffee where they reviewed overnight reports. Afternoon strategy sessions where they planned responses to threats and opportunities. Evening debriefs where they analyzed what worked and what didn't. They learned each other's thinking patterns, could finish each other's sentences during planning sessions, developed a shorthand that made communication efficient. Mrs. Yoon watched their evolution with satisfaction, though her health continued its slow decline. She hid it from everyone except Imani, who noticed her yellow-tinged skin, the way she pressed her hand to her side when she thought no one was looking, the medications that were getting stronger. How long? Imani asked her one afternoon in the garden. Months, not years. Perhaps until autumn if I'm fortunate. Mrs. Yoon's voice was calm, accepting. I've made peace with it. My only concern is leaving my son with adequate support. He has me now. Yes, that's why I can leave peacefully. You'll be what he needs. Someone who sees him as a person, not just a weapon or a resource. She reached over and patted Imani's hand with papery fingers. Thank you for that gift. For being someone real in his world of transactions. Meanwhile, Imani kept her family at careful distance. Malik texted weekly, still excited about Northwestern, talking about orientation, about classes, about his new roommate. Each message was another knife of guilt. She deflected every suggestion of visiting, invented new excuses. The security clearance was taking longer than expected. There were complications with her work visa. She'd definitely visit him in Chicago once he started school in the fall, but right now was just too busy with training for her new position. Jerome called less frequently, but when he did, the conversations were harder. Her father knew something was wrong, could hear it in her voice, in the careful way she chose words. Baby girl, you can tell me if you need help. Whatever's going on, we'll figure it out together. Everything's fine, Dad. I'm just adjusting to new responsibilities. The job is intense but good. This Ray, your husband. When do I meet him? Soon. I promise. Just let me get through this probationary period. More lies. Always more lies. Imani felt them piling up like stones, building a wall between who she'd been and who she was becoming. Then, on a Tuesday in late August, 3 months after the wedding, everything began unraveling. Imani was in the mansion's command center reviewing security protocols with Marcus when Kim burst in, phone in hand, face grim. We've got a problem. Viper's people just hit one of our warehouses on the south side. 4 dead, 2 wounded, and they left a message. What message? Ray demanded, appearing from nowhere the way he always did when crisis hit. And Kim turned his phone around. The photo showed a wall sprayed with bullets, and in the pattern of holes, a message, the Queen is next. Imani felt ice water replace her blood. He's coming for me specifically. Has been planning it for months, apparently. Marcus added, pulling up intelligence reports. Our sources say he's been tracking your movements, learning your patterns. He wants to hurt Ray by taking you out. Then we increase her security, Ray said immediately. Double the guards, restrict her movements. No public appearances until. No. Imani's voice cut through the planning. If I go into hiding, it looks weak. Like I'm afraid. That undermines everything we've built over the last 3 months. I'm not hiding. You're not invincible either, Ray shot back, and there was real concern in his voice now, not just strategic calculation. Viper's been planning this. That means it's sophisticated, well-funded, and probably already in motion. Before Imani could respond, her phone rang. The number showed Malik. She almost declined. She was in the middle of a crisis, but something made her answer. Malik? This isn't a good time. Sis. Surprise. Dad and I are at O'Hare. We flew in for the weekend. Wanted to surprise you and finally see this mysterious life you've been building. We're getting a cab to your address now. Can't wait to see you. The world stopped. Everything stopped. Imani looked up at Ray, at Marcus, at Kim, at the security footage showing armed guards and weapons and all the evidence of what her life really was, and felt her carefully separated worlds colliding at terminal velocity. Malik, she said, keeping her voice steady through sheer force of will. You can't come here. Not today. Not right now. What? Why not? Come on, we flew all this way. I want to meet your husband, see where you work, take you to dinner. We haven't seen you in months, Imani. What's really going on? Ray was already moving, snapping orders. Get a team to O'Hare. Pick them up. Bring them to the safe house on North Avenue. Do not let them come here. Move. But even as he spoke, Marcus's phone rang. He answered, listened, and his face went ashen. They're already in a cab. Gave the driver the mansion address. ETA 15 minutes. If you're still watching, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because what happens next is going to change everything. Imani's 2 worlds are about to collide in the most catastrophic way possible, and trust me, you don't want to miss a single second. Subscribe now, because this part 2 is just getting started, and the explosion you saw at the beginning? That's nothing compared to what's coming. Now back to the moment where everything falls apart. Imani felt panic rising, the kind that made thinking impossible. 15 minutes. Her father and brother were 15 minutes away from seeing armed guards, security systems, the entire apparatus of violence that defined her real life. 15 minutes from learning that everything she'd told them was a lie. We stage it, Imani heard herself saying, mind racing through possibilities like shuffling cards. We have 15 minutes to make this place look normal. Hide the weapons, dismiss the guards, make it look like a regular wealthy household. That's insane, Marcus said flatly. We have 20 armed personnel on site. Security systems. The command center. You can't hide all of that in 15 minutes. Then we don't hide it. We redirect them. Take them to the safe house apartment downtown. The one we keep for visiting associates. It's already furnished, already looks residential. We meet them there instead. Ray was already shaking his head. They gave the driver this address. If we're not here when they arrive, they'll know something's wrong. They'll ask questions. So we intercept them before they get here. Send someone to pick them up a few blocks out. Car trouble with their cab. We happen to be nearby. We'll drive you the rest of the way. Take them to the apartment instead. That's still suspicious, Kim pointed out. What if they insist on coming here? Imani felt the trap closing. There was no good option. Every choice led to exposure or obvious deception. But she had to try something. Just buy me time. Please. I need to think. I need. Her phone rang again. Different ringtone. Tobias. She answered on speaker. We've got a bigger problem. Tobias's voice was tense. Viper's people just grabbed someone. A girl, 17, Northwestern student. Amara Okafor. Marcus made a sound like he'd been shot. His daughter. Viper had taken his daughter. They left a message at her dorm. Tobias continued. Says they'll trade her for, he paused, for Malik Cross. They want Imani's brother. 1 for 1. They're giving us until midnight tonight. The room spun. Imani grabbed the desk edge to stay upright. Viper knew about Malik. Knew he was flying in today. Had planned this perfectly, timing the grab of Marcus's daughter to coincide with her brother's arrival. 2 families, 2 hostages, 1 impossible choice. Marcus was already moving toward the door, his massive frame radiating barely contained violence. I'm getting my daughter back. Now. I don't care who I have to kill. Wait, Ray commanded, voice cutting like a blade. That's exactly what he wants. You running and angry and stupid. This is coordinated. Planned. We need to think. Think. Marcus whirled on him, and for the first time since Imani had known him, she saw the man beneath the discipline. A father in absolute terror. That's my little girl. My Amara. She's got nothing to do with this life. She's supposed to be in class right now, studying, being normal. Instead his voice cracked. Instead she's in the hands of that animal because of me. Because of what I do. Imani understood that guilt. Lived it every day with her own family. She moved to Marcus, put her hand on his arm. He could have thrown her across the room without effort, but he just stood there shaking. We'll get her back, Imani said, not knowing if it was true, but needing to say it anyway. I promise you we'll get her back. How? They want your brother. You going to trade him? The question hung in the air like poison. Would she? Could she? Trade Malik's life for Amara's? Both innocent, both pulled into this world by association with people who dealt in violence. What was the moral calculus of that choice? What made one life more valuable than another? No one's getting traded, Ray said with absolute authority. This is a trap within a trap. Viper knows Imani's family is arriving. He grabbed Marcus's daughter to create chaos, to make us desperate and stupid. If we trade one hostage for another, we're just playing his game. We need to flip the board. How? Imani demanded. My brother and father are going to be here in, she checked her watch, 10 minutes. I can't let them come here. I can't let them see this. But I also can't let Malik get grabbed by Viper's people the second he steps out of a cab. So we bring them in. Mrs. Yoon's voice cut through the chaos. She stood in the doorway, looking friendlier than Imani had ever seen her, but with eyes sharp as ever. No more deception. No more lies. You bring your family here, you tell them the truth, and you protect them with everything we have. And then we go to war with Viper properly. All of us. No more half measures. Mother, that's the only option that doesn't end in catastrophe, she interrupted her son. Imani's brother is a liability as long as he's out there unprotected. Bring him inside these walls where we can guard him. Tell him the truth, all of it. Let him choose whether to stay or go with full knowledge. Same with her father. And while we're protecting them, we hunt down every single location Viper might be holding Amara, and we tear them apart until we find her. Marcus looked at Mrs. Yoon with something like hope for the first time. You do that? Risk open war with Viper to save my daughter. She's innocent. And you've been loyal to this family for 15 years. Of course we'll do that. Mrs. Yoon's voice softened slightly. Besides, Viper has been pushing toward this confrontation for months. He's made his move. Now we make ours. But first, she looked at Imani. You need to face your family. No more hiding. No more shame. You are who you are. They'll accept it or they won't. But at least they'll know the truth. Imani felt tears threatening and forced them back. What if they hate me? What if Malik looks at me the way he did in that vision of the future? Like I'm a stranger? Then you live with it. Mrs. Yoon said simply. But you live honestly. That's the only way forward now. The security system chimed. A car in the driveway. They were here. Imani looked at Ray. He nodded once, a gesture of support and solidarity. Whatever happened next, they'd face it together. She looked at Marcus, still vibrating with the need to act, to save his daughter. We'll get Amara back, she promised again. But first I have to do this. She walked to the front entrance of the mansion, her heels clicking on marble floors, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. Behind her, she heard Ray quietly ordering people to stay back, to give them space but remain ready. The massive front doors loomed before her. She opened them just as Malik and her father were climbing the steps. They stopped when they saw her, identical expressions of joy that twisted something inside her chest. Imani, Malik rushed forward for a hug, and she caught him, held him tight, smelled the familiar scent of his cologne that he'd worn since he was 14. Her baby brother, brilliant and hopeful, and so impossibly naive about the world. Jerome followed more slowly, taking in the mansion behind her, the luxury car in the driveway, the subtle evidence of wealth and power that couldn't quite be hidden. Baby girl, he said carefully. This is some house. Some job you got. Dad. Malik. Imani pulled back from her brother, looked at both of them. and felt the weight of every lie she'd told pressing down on her. We need to talk. Come inside. There are things I need to tell you. Things I should have told you months ago. They followed her into the foyer, eyes wide as they took in the opulence. Malik was looking around with unguarded wonder. Jerome with growing concern. Imani, what exactly is it that your husband does? Before she could answer, Ray appeared from the sitting room, and Imani saw her father's posture shift immediately. Every father's instinct recognizing danger when it walked into a room. Ray had that effect on people. Even dressed casually in dark jeans and a black shirt, he radiated controlled violence. Mr. Cross. Malik, I'm Ray Yoon, Imani's husband. He extended his hand. Jerome shook it warily. Malik with teenage enthusiasm. Dude, this place is incredible. You must be like, crazy successful. What field are you in? The innocent question hung in the air. Imani saw Ray's slight hesitation, the calculation of how to answer. Then she made the decision for both of them. Dad. Malik, sit down, please. What I'm about to tell you is going to sound insane, but I need you to listen to all of it before you react. Can you do that? They sat on the expensive leather sofa, looking increasingly worried. Imani remained standing, Ray a silent presence beside her. And then, for the first time in 4 months, she told the truth. All of it. The gas station. The bullet. Waking up trapped. The forced marriage. The organization Ray ran. What they actually did. How she'd gone from victim to participant to partner in an empire built on violence and crime. She watched her father's face cycle through disbelief, horror, anger, fear. Watched Malik's expression shift from confusion to shock to something that looked like betrayal. When she finished, the silence was deafening. Jerome stood slowly, his whole body rigid. You're telling me that you're married to a crime lord. That you're part of organized crime. That every single thing you've told us for the last 4 months has been a lie. Yes, Imani said, because there was no other answer. And you couldn't tell us? Couldn't warn us? Just let us fly into this blindly. I was trying to protect you. If you didn't know, you couldn't be targets. You could stay normal, stay safe. Safe? Jerome's voice cracked. You think we're safe? Malik just flew into a city where people are trying to kill his sister. Where criminals know who we are. Actually, Ray said quietly, and every eye turned to him. That's partially true and partially worse. Viper, our primary enemy, grabbed a teenage girl today. The daughter of one of our captains. He's demanding we trade her for Malik. He knew your son was coming. He's been watching your family for weeks, probably months. That's why Imani kept you away. Not to deceive you, but to keep you out of range. Malik's face went white. Someone wants to kidnap me? Because of her. He looked at Imani like he'd never seen her before. Who are you? Because you're not my sister. My sister delivered food. My sister helped me with homework. My sister wouldn't. He gestured wildly at the mansion, at Ray, at everything. She wouldn't be part of something like this. I'm still your sister, Imani said, hearing her voice crack. Everything that happened just forced me to become someone else too. Forced? You could have said no. You could have run. You could have. Could have what, Malik? Let them kill me? Let them kill Dad. Let them kill you. The words came out harder than she meant. I was broke. I was drowning. I took a bullet for a stranger, and that created a debt I couldn't refuse. So yes, I made choices. Hard choices. Choices that kept you safe and in college and alive. I'm sorry if that disappoints you, but I'd make the same choices again. Jerome moved between them, his face a mask of barely contained emotion. Don't talk to your brother like that. He's 16. He's a child. None of this is his fault. None of it's my fault either. Imani shot back. I didn't ask for this. I didn't choose to be at that gas station. I didn't choose to be the kind of person who can't walk away when someone needs help. But here we are, and now we have to deal with reality instead of what we wish was true. The reality is you became a criminal, Jerome said, and the disappointment in his voice was worse than anger would have been. Your mother and I raised you better than this. We taught you right from wrong. Mom died owing $87,000 in medical bills that I was paying off at minimum wage. Imani's voice rose. You were barely making rent in Atlanta. Malik was applying for scholarships because we couldn't afford college. We were drowning, Dad. All of us. And I found a way to fix it. Maybe it's not the way you wanted. Maybe it makes me a bad person. But at least I did something instead of just accepting poverty as our permanent condition. The words hung between them like broken glass. Jerome's face crumpled, and Imani immediately regretted it. This wasn't his fault. None of this was his fault. I'm sorry, she said quickly. Dad, I didn't mean. No. His voice was quiet now, devastated. You're right. I couldn't provide. Couldn't protect you. So you had to sell yourself to criminals to survive. That's on me. That's not what I'm saying. An explosion cut off her words. The entire mansion shook. Windows shattered in distant rooms. Alarms began screaming. Ray was already moving, phone to his ear, barking orders. Report. What just happened? And Kim's voice came through on speaker, tight with adrenaline. South entrance. Car bomb. Someone just drove a vehicle through the gate and detonated. We've got hostile contacts coming through the breach. Multiple hostiles. They're hitting us now. Gunfire erupted somewhere in the mansion. Close. Too close. Ray grabbed Jerome and Malik, physically moving them. Command center. Now. Imani, with them. Marcus, you're with me. And Kim, secure the family. Move. Everything happened fast. Too fast. Imani was being pulled by Kim's massive hand, Jerome and Malik stumbling alongside her, the sound of gunfire getting closer. They burst into the command center just as armed men in tactical gear poured into the hallway behind them. The reinforced door slammed shut. Locked. But not before Imani saw blood on the marble floors. Bodies. People she'd worked with for months, now dead because Viper was making his move. The command center was controlled chaos. Monitors showing security feeds of the mansion under assault. Dozens of armed attackers in coordinated teams. Professional. Well-equipped. This wasn't a raid. This was an invasion. Malik was hyperventilating in the corner. This isn't real. This can't be real. People are shooting. There's a war happening. This is insane. Jerome pulled his son close, trying to shield him with his body from things he couldn't actually protect him from. His eyes found Imani's across the room. This is your life? This is what you've been living? Yes, she said simply, because there was no other answer. How long before they get through that door? Jerome asked, and there was something new in his voice. Not anger anymore. Fear. The primal fear of a father realizing his children were in mortal danger. That door will hold, and Kim said with certainty. Reinforced steel, biometric locks. But the rest of the mansion is compromised. Ray and Marcus are engaging hostiles. Mrs. Yoon is in the safe room. We hold here until they push the attack back. And if they don't push it back? Malik asked, voice high and frightened. Kim didn't answer. Didn't need to. The answer was obvious. Imani moved to the monitors, forcing herself to focus. This was happening. She couldn't change it. Could only respond. The feeds showed tactical teams moving through the mansion with precision. Room clearing maneuvers. Professional spacing. This wasn't just Viper's people. This was trained soldiers. Mercenaries maybe. They're heading for something specific, she said, studying the patterns. Look, they're not looting, not destroying randomly. They're moving toward. Her blood went cold. The safe room. They know where Mrs. Yoon is. They're going for her. Kim was already on the radio. Boss, they're targeting your mother's location. Multiple teams converging on the safe room. Ray's voice came back tense. We're pinned down on the second floor. Can't get there in time. How secure is that room? 20 minutes against a determined assault with the right equipment. They've got the equipment. Silence on the radio. Then, Imani, I need you to think. If you were planning this attack, what would you do next? The question cut through her fear, forced her brain into analytical mode. If she were Viper, attacking the mansion, targeting Mrs. Yoon specifically, what would be the endgame? Kill the matriarch, decapitate leadership, but that could be done at any time. Why now? Why today when? Oh God, Imani breathed. This isn't about Mrs. Yoon. Or it's not just about her. He timed this for when my family was here. Maximum chaos. Maximum emotional damage. He wants us distracted while. She spun to Kim. Where's Marcus? Exactly where? Kim checked monitors. North wing, engaging hostiles with Ray. Pull up the security feed from his daughter's dorm. Northwestern campus. Right now. Kim's massive fingers flew over keyboards. The monitor shifted to show Northwestern's campus security feed they'd hacked into. Amara's dorm building. Nothing unusual. Students walking. Normal college afternoon. Zoom in on the parking lot. That van. The white one that's been sitting there for 3 hours. The image zoomed. Through the windshield, barely visible, a figure. Then the van doors opened and men poured out. 6 of them, moving toward the dorm entrance with purpose. They're taking her now, Imani said. While we're under attack here. While Marcus is fighting for his life instead of protecting his daughter. Viper's hitting us in 2 places simultaneously. The mansion attack is the distraction. We can't get there in time, Kim said grimly. Even if we dispatched now, they'd be gone before we arrived. Imani's mind raced. 2 crises. Simultaneous. By design. Viper had planned this perfectly. Forced them to choose which battle to fight, which person to save. Classic tactics. Forcing your enemy to split their forces and attention. But Viper had made one mistake. He'd assumed Imani would think like the criminals around her. React with violence, with territorial defense, with the instinct to protect their base. But Imani had spent years learning to think like a nurse. To triage. To identify the most critical patient and treat them first, even if it meant others suffered. We abandon the mansion, she said suddenly. Everyone turned to stare at her. We evacuate right now. Mrs. Yoon, all of us. We let Viper have the building. It's just a building. Just property. While he's busy here, we go get Amara. We hit him where he's not expecting resistance because he thinks we'll defend our territory. We flip the script. That's insane, Kim said. This mansion is our stronghold. Our base. We give it up, we look weak. We look smart, Imani countered. We look like we prioritize people over property. Marcus's daughter is innocent. Mrs. Yoon can be moved. This building can be rebuilt. But if we lose Amara, we lose Marcus's loyalty forever. If we lose Mrs. Yoon, we lose the Korean faction's respect. If we lose my brother, her voice caught. We lose any claim that we're different from Viper. We have to choose people over pride. Let me ask you something real quick. Have you ever had to make a choice where every option was terrible? Where doing the right thing meant sacrificing something precious? That's where Imani is right now. She's choosing to give up the mansion, to look weak, to potentially lose everything they've built. Because saving one innocent girl matters more than winning a battle. Drop a comment if you think she's making the right call, because what happens next will change everything. Kim was already shaking his head. Boss won't authorize that. Abandoning the mansion sends a message that we can be pushed out of our own home. Then I'm not asking for authorization. Imani grabbed the radio. Ray, are you listening? Static, gunfire, then his voice. Kind of busy, Imani. I need you to trust me. Viper is taking Amara right now from Northwestern. This attack on the mansion is a distraction. He's splitting our focus. If we fight to hold this building, we lose Marcus's daughter and maybe his loyalty. If we evacuate and hit his people at the university instead, we save her, and we show we're willing to sacrifice territory for people. That makes us stronger, not weaker. Silence. More gunfire. Then Ray's voice, slightly breathless. You want me to abandon our stronghold while under direct assault. I want you to win the war, not just this battle. Viper expects us to defend. So we don't. We pull everyone back, evacuate through the underground tunnel to the garage, and we go save an innocent girl. We prove we're not like him. More silence. Imani could hear the calculation happening in that pause. The strategic mind weighing options, risks, outcomes. Marcus, Ray's voice called out. Your call. We defend the mansion, or we go get your daughter. Choose. On the monitors, Imani watched Marcus stop mid-firefight, watched him process what was being offered. His daughter. His loyalty. His choice. Amara. Marcus said without hesitation. Always Amara. The mansion is just walls. My daughter is everything. Nkem, Ray commanded. Full evacuation protocol. Everyone to the underground garage. We're leaving. Set the building to lock down after we're clear. Let Viper's people have an empty house. The evacuation was controlled chaos. Nkem and his team moved them through hidden passages Imani hadn't known existed. Mrs. Yoon was brought from her safe room by 2 guards, looking pale but composed. Ray and Marcus fought a running retreat, covering the evacuation while hostile forces pushed deeper into the mansion. They lost people. Imani saw 3 bodies as they passed through corridors. People she'd worked with. People with families who'd wake up tomorrow to devastating news. Jerome kept Malik close, his face grim but determined. Stay with me, son. Don't look at anything you don't have to. Just keep moving. They reached the underground garage where a fleet of vehicles waited. Armored SUVs, engines already running. Ray appeared from a stairwell, blood on his shirt that might or might not be his. Marcus right behind him. Everyone in. Now, we move in 3 vehicles. Spread out the primary targets. If they hit one vehicle, the others keep going. Where exactly at Northwestern? Marcus demanded as they piled into vehicles. Where is she? Imani pulled up the campus map on her phone. Her dorm is Chapin Hall. But they won't keep her there. Too visible. If I were them, I'd move her too. She studied the map, thinking like kidnappers now, thinking like criminals. The parking structure. Level 4. Least cameras, easiest to access with vehicles, good sightlines. That's where they'll transfer her. How do you know that? Jerome asked from beside her, and there was something in his voice. Not judgment anymore. Something closer to recognition of who his daughter had become. Because it's what makes sense. Medical triage thinking. Assess the environment, identify the safest route, minimize exposure time. Kidnappers think the same way. She met her father's eyes. I'm good at this, Dad. I hate that I'm good at it, but I am. They roared out of the garage through an exit tunnel that emerged 3 blocks from the mansion. Behind them, Imani could see smoke rising from the building she'd called home for 4 months. Viper's people would find it empty except for security systems set to lockdown. They'd won the building, but lost the prize. He's going to be furious, she said to Ray, who sat beside her in the tactical vest someone had thrown at him. Good. Fury makes people sloppy. He was texting rapidly, coordinating with other teams. I've got 12 vehicles converging on Northwestern from different angles. We're going to surround that parking structure, and we're getting Amara out. Viper wanted a war. We'll give him one. What about my family? Imani asked quietly, glancing back at where Jerome and Malik sat with Nkem between them like a human shield. They stay in the vehicle with Nkem. Armored glass, reinforced frame. Safest place they can be until this is over. Ray looked at her directly. You don't have to come in. You've already done more than. I'm coming. Amara trusted me with her college essay. With her dreams. I'm not letting her get hurt because of who her father is or who I married. Something flickered in Ray's expression. You've changed. The woman I threatened 4 months ago wouldn't have run toward gunfire. The woman you threatened 4 months ago died somewhere along the way. I'm someone else now. They reached Northwestern in 15 minutes that felt like 15 hours. The parking structure loomed ahead, concrete and shadow. Ray's teams were already in position, vehicles blocking exits. Armed personnel moving into strategic positions. This was happening. They were about to hit Viper's people in public, in daylight, on a college campus. The exposure was massive. The risk catastrophic. Marcus was out of the vehicle before it fully stopped, Ray barely managing to grab his arm. Wait. We do this smart or we get her killed. You want your daughter back alive, you follow my lead. Marcus looked like he wanted to argue, but decades of discipline held. Tell me what to do. Imani, Ray turned to her. You were right about the location. They're on level 4. 3 vehicles, 8 men. Thermal imaging shows one small figure in the middle vehicle. That's Amara. They're preparing to move. We've got maybe 2 minutes before they leave. Can we block them in? Already done. But if they realize they're trapped, they might. He didn't finish. Didn't need to. They might hurt her. Use her as a shield. Kill her out of spite. So we don't let them realize they're trapped. We approach from multiple angles simultaneously. Fast and overwhelming. They don't get time to think or react. Ray nodded. Marcus, you're with me. Tobias, take the west approach. Kim, you stay with Imani's family no matter what happens. If this goes wrong, you get them out of Chicago. Understood. Understood, boss. What about me? Imani demanded. You stay in the... I'm a trauma nurse, Ray. Or I was training to be one. If someone gets hurt, you need me there. And if Amara's scared, she needs to see a familiar face. I'm coming. He looked at her for a long moment, then pulled a vest from the vehicle and threw it to her. Stay behind Marcus. If shooting starts, you get down and you stay down. Promise me. I promise. It was a lie and they both knew it, but there wasn't time to argue. They moved toward the parking structure in coordinated teams. Imani's heart hammered so hard she thought everyone could hear it. This was really happening. She was walking into a firefight. Armed men. Hostage situation. Everything she'd never imagined being part of. They reached level 4. The 3 vehicles sat in the corner, exactly where Imani had predicted. Men stood around them, checking weapons, looking nervous. They knew something was wrong. Could feel the trap closing even if they couldn't see it yet. Ray's voice came through the earpiece he'd given her. On my mark. 3, 2, 1. Mark. 12 vehicles appeared from different directions simultaneously, blocking every exit. Armed personnel emerged, weapons raised. Viper's men froze, caught completely off guard. For one suspended moment, nobody moved. Everybody calculating odds, assessing options. Then one of Viper's men made a choice. He grabbed the back door of the center vehicle, yanked it open, and pulled out a teenage girl. Amara. Her mouth was taped, hands zip-tied, eyes huge with terror. He pressed a gun to her head. Back off. All of you. Back off, or I kill her right now. Marcus made a sound like an animal in pain. Ray's hand shot out, holding him back. Wait. Don't move. Give me a shot. But there was no shot. The man was using Amara as a complete shield, pressing her against him, the gun barrel against her temple. Any bullet that missed him would hit her. Standoff. Everyone frozen. Amara's eyes found her father, and even from 30 feet away, Imani could see her trying not to cry, trying to be brave for him. We're leaving, the man shouted. You try to stop us, she dies. You follow us, she dies. You do anything except let us walk, she dies. Understand. Nobody answered. What was there to say? He had all the power in that moment. Had the one thing that mattered most. But Imani was watching something else. Watching the man's stance. His breathing. His grip on the weapon. She'd seen panic before. Had seen it in hospitals when family members got bad news, when patients coded, when death became real instead of abstract. She knew what panic looked like. How it moved. What it made people do. This man was panicking. Which meant he was operating on instinct, not training. Which meant he had weaknesses. Patterns. She started moving before she consciously decided to. Walked forward slowly, hands visible and empty, making herself small and non-threatening. Hey, she called out softly. Hey, it's okay. Nobody has to get hurt here. Imani, what are you doing? Ray hissed in her earpiece. She ignored him, kept walking, kept her voice calm and steady. I'm Imani. I know you're scared right now. I know this whole thing went wrong and you're trying to figure out how to survive it. I get it. I really do. But you don't want to hurt that girl. I can see it in your eyes. You're not a killer. You're just trying to do a job and everything went sideways. The man's gun wavered slightly. Stay back. I'll do it. I swear I'll. You won't. Because if you hurt her, there's no walking away. You know that, right? You hurt Marcus Okafor's daughter, and there's no place on earth far enough. But if you let her go right now, if you give her to me and walk away, maybe there's a deal to be made. Maybe you survive this. But only if she's okay. If you're still watching this, please subscribe right now because what happens in the next 30 seconds will determine if Imani lives or dies, if Amara makes it out alive, and whether everything they've sacrificed means anything. Because Imani just walked into the line of fire, and there's no going back now. The man's breathing was ragged now, gun hand shaking. You think I'm stupid? You think I believe there's a deal? The second I let her go, I'm dead. Maybe. Or maybe you're valuable alive. Information is worth more than revenge. You know things about Viper. Where he operates. How his network runs. That's currency. That's something we can trade for your life. Imani took another step closer. She could see Amara's face clearly now. The girl was terrified but holding it together, reading the situation, understanding that Imani was trying to help. Smart girl. Her father's daughter. How do I know you can make that promise? The man demanded. You're not in charge. You're just his wife. You don't control anything. Imani felt something shift inside her. Just his wife. Just the decorative piece. Just the outsider who didn't matter. She'd heard variations of that dismissal for months. From Sangmi. From skeptical elders. From people who saw her as Ray's political prop and nothing more. But she wasn't that anymore. Hadn't been for a while. She just hadn't fully claimed it until this moment. You're wrong, she said, voice carrying across the parking garage with absolute authority. I'm not just his wife. I'm co-head of this organization. And I'm telling you right now, in front of everyone here, that if you release Amara Okafor unharmed, you get to live. You get protection. You get witness protection if that's what it takes. But you have to let her go. Right now. Before Marcus loses control and someone makes this situation bloodier than it needs to be. She could feel Ray's eyes on her. Feel the weight of every person watching this play out. She'd just claimed authority she wasn't entirely sure she had. But she'd said it with enough conviction that it sounded true. Looked true. The man hesitated. His gun hand dropped slightly, no longer pressed directly against Amara's temple. Imani saw the opening and took it, moving fast. Not toward the man. That would have triggered his defensive instincts. Toward Amara, reaching out to the girl. Come here, sweetheart. Come to me. It's going to be okay. Amara lurched forward, breaking partially free of the man's grip. He tried to grab her back, but Marcus was already moving, faster than anyone his size should be able to move. He covered the distance in seconds, his massive hand closing around the man's wrist, twisting the gun away with brutal efficiency. The weapon clattered to concrete. Amara broke free completely, stumbling into Imani's arms. Imani caught her, felt the girl's whole body shaking, heard her sobbing against her shoulder. You're safe. I've got you. You're safe now. She turned, shielding Amara with her own body, walking her away from the confrontation as Marcus dealt with the man who'd held his daughter hostage. Behind them, she heard impact sounds. Fists on flesh. A man crying out. Ray's voice commanding Marcus to stop before he killed the prisoner. They'd need him for information. But the sounds continued for several more seconds before Marcus finally backed off, breathing hard, knuckles bloody. Tobias and 2 others secured the remaining members of Viper's team. No more resistance. The fight had gone out of them the moment their leverage disappeared. They were professionals, knew when a job was lost. Imani guided Amara to one of their vehicles, helped her sit, carefully removed the tape from her mouth, and cut the zip ties from her wrists. The girl's hands immediately went to her face, covering it as she sobbed with the release of terror finally allowed to express itself. You're okay. You're safe now. Your dad's here. Imani looked up to see Marcus approaching, his face a mess of relief and residual fear and gratitude all mixed together. He's right here. Marcus dropped to his knees beside the vehicle, pulling his daughter into his arms, and for a moment the massive, intimidating captain disappeared, and there was just a father holding his child. I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. This should never have happened to you. Never. I'm sorry. Dad. Amara managed through tears. Dad, I was so scared. They just grabbed me from my dorm, and I didn't know what was happening, and she looked at Imani. You came for me. You actually came. Of course we did. Did you think we'd leave you? Imani touched the girl's face gently, checking for injuries. Bruises on her wrists from the zip ties. Probably bruised ribs from being manhandled. Nothing life-threatening. You're going to be okay. But we need to get you checked out properly. Make sure. An explosion in the distance cut her off. Everyone turned to look. Black smoke rising from somewhere in the city. Multiple locations. Ray was already on his phone, listening, his face going grim. 3 of our businesses just got hit simultaneously. The club on State Street. The warehouse in Pilsen. The restaurant in Chinatown. All of them bombed. Casualties unknown. He's escalating, Tobias said. We took his hostage and grabbed his men. Now he's hitting our revenue streams and showing he can reach us anywhere. Ray's jaw tightened. Get everyone back to the secondary safe house. Not the mansion. That's compromised. The facility in Oak Park. Move now. He turned to Imani. You were right about evacuating the mansion. If we'd been there when those bombs went off across the city, we'd have been stuck defending static positions while he destroyed everything else. You saved us from that. I saved us from one trap. He's got more. Viper's not done. This is him showing that even though we rescued Amara, he can still hurt us. He's demonstrating reach. Then we demonstrate finality. Ray's voice was cold now, the warmth she'd seen earlier completely gone. This was the crime lord, the man who'd inherited a war at 17 and never forgotten how to fight one. No more defensive positions. No more reacting to his moves. We find every location he operates from, and we burn them all to the ground in one night. Complete offensive. Total war. Marcus stood, still holding Amara's hand. I'm in. Whatever it takes. He grabbed my daughter. He dies for that. We need time to plan, Tobias cautioned. Coordinated simultaneous strikes on multiple locations requires. We don't have time, Imani interrupted, seeing something none of them had. Look at the pattern. The mansion attack. The kidnapping. The bombings. He's not building towards something bigger. This is the bigger thing. He's already committed. Every asset he has is probably in motion right now. We hit back now while he's exposed, or he consolidates and becomes impossible to reach. Ray looked at her, really looked at her, and she saw the moment he decided to trust her strategic thinking completely. All right, we go tonight. Every family we've allied with, every favor we're owed, every piece we have on the board. We throw everything at Viper's organization, and we don't stop until there's nothing left. Boss. Kim called from the vehicle where Jerome and Malik still waited. We've got a problem. The kid tried to run. Saw his chance during the chaos and bolted. Jerome's trying to talk him down, but Imani ran to the vehicle. Malik stood 30 feet away, looking wild-eyed and desperate. Jerome was approaching slowly, hands out in placating gesture. Son, just come back to the vehicle. We'll figure this out together. Figure what out, Dad? How to be okay with Imani being a criminal. How to pretend this is normal. People just got kidnapped. Bombs are going off. This is insane. Malik's voice cracked. I don't even know her anymore. That's not my sister. My sister wouldn't be part of something like this. Imani felt each word like a physical blow. This was what she'd feared. The moment when Malik looked at her and saw a stranger. Saw a monster. Saw everything except the sister who'd raised him and protected him and loved him. Malik, she started, but he backed away. Don't. Just don't. I want to go home. I want to get on a plane and go back to Atlanta and pretend I never came here. Pretend I never saw any of this. You can't, Ray said, appearing beside Imani. His voice wasn't harsh, but it was absolute. Viper knows who you are now. Knows where you live. You go back to Atlanta, you're a target. Unprotected and easy. You stay here, you're behind our security. Those are your only two options. So I'm a prisoner now? You're protected. There's a difference. Is there? Malik looked at his sister. You're a prisoner who learned to like her cage. Don't make me like mine. The words cut deep. Imani wanted to argue, to explain, to make him understand that survival sometimes meant compromise. But looking at his face, his innocence shattered, his trust broken, she realized that some things couldn't be explained. Only lived with. Fine, she said quietly. Hate me. Blame me. See me as the villain. But stay alive. That's all I'm asking. Stay alive long enough to maybe understand why I made the choices I made. And if you never understand, if you never forgive me, I'll live with that. But I won't live with you dying because I couldn't protect you. Malik stared at her, and she saw the internal war on his face. The brother who loved his sister fighting with a young man whose worldview had just been shattered. Finally, he walked back to the vehicle. Didn't look at her. Didn't speak. Just got in and stared straight ahead. Jerome touched Imani's shoulder as he passed. Give him time. He's processing. We both are. But Imani? You saved that girl. That took courage. Your mother would have, his voice caught. She would have been proud of that part, at least. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was something. Imani held on to it as they drove to the safe house in Oak Park, the whole convoy moving through Chicago streets like a military operation. She held on to it as Ray gathered everyone who'd survived the day's chaos and laid out the plan for the night's offensive. She held on to it as weapons were distributed and targets were assigned, and the machinery of violence was set into motion. Because tonight, they were going to war. Real war. Not skirmishes or strategic hits, but full assault on everything Viper had built. And by the time the sun rose tomorrow, either he'd be destroyed or they would be. The safe house in Oak Park was a converted warehouse that looked abandoned from the outside, but functioned as a fully equipped operations center inside. Maps covered every wall. Computer systems blinked with intelligence feeds. 30 core personnel filled the space, with another 100 positioned across the city waiting for orders. This was the full force of Ray's organization, pulled from every corner of Chicago, unified for the first time in years. Mrs. Yoon sat in a chair near the center of operations, looking more fragile than Imani had ever seen her, but with eyes still sharp as razor blades. The day's chaos had taken a toll on her failing body, but she refused medical attention, refused rest, refused anything except being present for what came next. This is what I raised you for, she told Ray quietly as he reviewed tactical plans. Not to maintain an empire, but to know when to risk everything to end a threat permanently. Your father would have hesitated, would have calculated odds, and waited for better positioning. That hesitation got him killed. Don't make his mistake. Ray nodded, absorbing the lesson, then turned to address the room. Viper has 15 primary locations in Chicago. Clubs, warehouses, front businesses, safe houses. We've identified them all. At midnight, we hit all 15 simultaneously. Fast, overwhelming, complete. We're not taking territory. We're destroying it. Every location gets cleared and burned. Everyone who works for him gets one chance to surrender or switch sides. Anyone who fights dies. This ends tonight. What about Viper himself? Marcus asked. He won't be at any of those locations. He's too smart for that. We've been tracking communication patterns. Tobias pulled up a map showing network analysis. He's been coordinating from somewhere mobile. A vehicle, probably. But he's got to come to ground eventually. When he does, when he realizes his entire operation is burning, he'll go to his primary backup location. The one he thinks we don't know about. Do we know about it? Imani asked. As of 2 hours ago, yes. David Park, the kid you saved from interrogation months ago, he worked for Viper before us. He knew about a property in Gary, Indiana. Abandoned steel mill. Viper bought it through shell companies years ago, converted the underground sections into a fortress. That's where he'll run when everything else is gone. So we let him run there, Ray said. Let him think he's safe. Then we bring the hammer down. Complete and final. Imani studied the plan, looking for flaws, for things they hadn't considered. What about his people who aren't at these locations? The ones who are just workers, low level, not actual criminals. They get offered exit packages, Ray said. Money to disappear, help relocating if they want it. Anyone who wasn't directly involved in violence gets a clean break. This isn't about crushing everyone. It's about removing the leadership and the people who enjoyed the cruelty. And the innocent people who work at these businesses? The bartenders at his clubs, the workers at his warehouses. Already cleared out. We sent warnings 3 hours ago. Anonymous calls about gas leaks, electrical problems, health inspections. Every location evacuated before we move. Minimal civilian exposure. Imani felt something loosen in her chest. They were doing this as cleanly as possible. It was still violence. Still destruction. But at least they were trying to minimize innocent casualties. It wasn't redemption, but it was something. What about us? Jerome's voice cut through the planning. He stood near the wall with Malik, both of them looking out of place among the criminals and soldiers. What do you need us to do? Stay here, Ray said. Protected. Safe. Out of the line of fire. No. Jerome's voice was firm. I'm not sitting on the sidelines while my daughter risks her life. I was in the army. Infantry. 2 tours. I know how to handle myself. Give me a weapon and a position. Let me do something useful. Ray looked at him with new assessment. You never mentioned military service. You never asked. And it was a long time ago. But I remember enough. I can shoot. I can follow orders. I can watch a perimeter. Something. Anything except sitting here feeling useless while my family is in danger. Dad, Imani started. No, baby girl. You've been carrying this family for months. Years, maybe. Let me carry some of the weight for once. Please. Imani looked at her father and saw something she hadn't seen in years. Purpose. Dignity. The man he'd been before poverty and loss had worn him down. Part of her wanted to protect him, keep him away from the violence. But another part understood that he needed this. Needed to be part of the solution instead of just another person she had to shield. Put him on perimeter security, she told Ray. Somewhere defensive, not assault. Let him contribute without putting him in the most dangerous position. Ray nodded slowly. Kim, can you work with him? Make sure he's equipped properly. Yes, boss. I'll keep him safe. Malik spoke up then, his voice tight. What about me? What do I do? You stay here with Mrs. Yoon, Imani said immediately. You're 16. You're not going anywhere near this. So I'm useless. Just dead weight you have to protect. Your family. That's not the same thing, isn't it? Dad gets to help. You're in command. I'm just the kid everyone has to babysit. His face was bitter, angry, lost. I don't want to be here. I don't want any of this. But if I'm stuck in it anyway, at least let me do something that matters. Mrs. Yoon spoke up, her voice carrying despite its weakness. Come sit with me, young man. I need someone to help me monitor communications. Someone smart enough to see patterns in the chatter. Someone who can think analytically under pressure. Engineering student, yes? Then you understand systems. Help me understand the system we're fighting. It was a gift. A way for Malik to contribute without being exposed to violence. A role that mattered without being dangerous. Imani caught Mrs. Yoon's eyes and nodded gratitude. Malik hesitated, then moved to sit beside the old woman. What do you need me to do? Listen, watch, think. Tell me what you notice in the communication patterns. Sometimes young eyes see what old eyes miss. The war council continued. Assignments given. Teams organized. Imani found herself in a planning role, using her medical knowledge to identify which locations would have the best medical response times if casualties occurred, which routes emergency services would take, how to minimize exposure to civilians. She was becoming exactly what Mrs. Yoon had said she would. Someone who made them more strategic, more careful, more human despite the violence they dealt in. At 11:30, the teams began moving into position. 15 strike forces spread across Chicago, each targeting a different location. Ray would lead the team hitting Viper's primary nightclub. Marcus would take the warehouse district. Tobias the Chinatown operation. Imani was supposed to stay at the safe house, coordinate, monitor. She lasted 10 minutes after they left. I need to go, she told Kim. I need to be there when they bring in casualties. I'm the closest thing to a medic we have. Boss said you stay here. Boss isn't here. I'm making an executive decision. You coming with me or staying with Malik and Mrs. Yoon? Kim looked torn, then made his choice. I'm coming. But you stay in the vehicle unless absolutely necessary. Promise me. I promise. Another lie, but a necessary one. They drove toward the nightclub, arriving just as Ray's team was moving into position. The street had been cleared, innocent bystanders already gone. The club's neon sign still glowed, oblivious to what was coming. Inside, Viper's people were probably drinking, celebrating surviving the day's chaos, thinking they'd won something. They were about to learn otherwise. Ray's voice came through on the radio. All teams report readiness. One by one, the team leaders confirmed. Ready. In position. Waiting. At my mark, Ray said. 3, 2, 1. Execute. 15 locations across Chicago erupted simultaneously. Doors blown off hinges. Flash grenades. Armed teams pouring in. Imani watched through binoculars from the vehicle as Ray's team cleared the nightclub with brutal efficiency. Anyone who surrendered was zip-tied and pulled outside. Anyone who fought was put down. It was over in 3 minutes. The club was secure. Viper's people were either dead, captured, or fleeing into the night where other teams were waiting to catch them. Across the city, the same scene played out 14 more times. Years of Viper's empire dismantled in a single coordinated strike. His safe houses raided. His warehouses seized. His front's businesses shut down. Everything he'd built, gone. Casualties started coming in. 3 of Ray's people wounded at the warehouse. 1 critical from the Chinatown operation. 2 of Viper's men dead at the nightclub. Another 5 wounded and captured. Imani moved between vehicles turned into temporary triage stations, her nursing training kicking in automatically. Stop the bleeding. Stabilize. Assess. Move to the next patient. She worked with hands that were steady despite the chaos, focused despite the fear. One of the wounded was David Park, the young man she'd saved from torture months ago. He'd been part of Marcus's warehouse team. Took a bullet in the leg, but was smiling through the pain. We got them. We actually got them all. Stay still. Let me check the wound. Imani cut away his pants, assessed the damage. Through and through. Clean. Lucky. You're going to be fine. Muscle damage, but no major vessels hit. Thank you. For everything. You changed my life that day. Gave me a chance to be something better than Viper's errand boy. You're welcome. Now shut up and let me work. By 1 in the morning, all 15 locations were secure. The butcher's bill was lighter than expected. 8 of Viper's people dead. 23 captured. Maybe 30 more escaped into the night. On Ray's side, 5 wounded, none critical. 0 civilian casualties. It was the cleanest military operation Imani had ever seen, and she'd just been part of it. A participant in organized violence. A war council member in a criminal empire. Everything she'd never wanted to be. But as she bandaged wounds and saved lives and saw the relief on people's faces when they realized they'd survived, she also understood something else. She was good at this. At operating in chaos. At making impossible decisions under pressure. At being the person who kept others alive when everything was falling apart. Maybe that made her a criminal. Or maybe it just made her what she'd always been. A survivor who protected the people around her, whatever the cost. Ray appeared beside her as she finished with the last casualty. He was sweating, covered in dust and someone else's blood, but uninjured. You were supposed to stay in the vehicle. I was needed here. So here's where I was. Imani wiped blood from her hands onto a towel, meeting his eyes directly. We can argue about it later. Right now, tell me about Viper. Did we get him? No. He wasn't at any of the locations. But his communications just went dark. Every phone, every network, everything silent. He's running exactly like we predicted. Ray pulled out his phone, showed her a tracking map. 3 vehicles just left Chicago heading southeast toward Gary. That's him. Has to be. He's going to his fortress. Then we go finish this. We've got teams already moving into position around the steel mill. But Imani, this is the dangerous part. His last stronghold. He'll have his most loyal people there, his best weapons, everything he's saved for a final stand. I need you to stay here. Coordinate. Make sure everyone gets proper medical attention. Let us handle. No. Her voice was firm, final. I've come this far. I've made every choice that led to this moment. I'm not sitting out the ending. Besides, if there are casualties, you'll need medical support on site. That's me. I'm going. Ray looked like he wanted to argue, but something in her expression stopped him. Maybe he recognized that she'd already decided and nothing would change it. Or maybe he understood that she needed to see this through, to witness the conclusion of the path she'd been forced onto 4 months ago. Fine. But you stay back, behind the assault teams. Medical support only. Promise me. I promise. This time, she meant it. The convoy to Gary, Indiana took 40 minutes, long enough for Imani to think about everything that had led to this moment. The gas station, the bullet, the forced marriage, the slow transformation from victim to participant to something that had no clean name. She thought about Malik's face when he'd looked at her like a stranger, about her father finding purpose again, about Mrs. Yoon's failing body and sharp mind, about Marcus holding his daughter, about all the impossible choices that had brought them here. You're quiet, Ray said from beside her in the vehicle. Regretting coming? Regretting everything and nothing. Both at once. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. That's what this life is. Constant contradiction. Doing terrible things for good reasons. Becoming someone you hate so you can protect people you love. There's no clean answer. No redemption arc. Just survival and the choices that make survival possible. That's a bleak philosophy. It's an honest one. They arrived at the abandoned steel mill just before 2 in the morning. The structure loomed against the night sky like a cathedral of rust and decay. But underneath, according to David Park's intelligence, was a bunker system that Viper had converted into a fortress. Multiple levels, reinforced walls, enough supplies to survive a siege. Ray had no intention of laying siege. We go in hard and fast, he told the assembled teams. Explosive charges on the main entrance. Flash greenings. Standard breach protocol. Marcus, take your team through the west service tunnel. Tobias, east side. I'll lead primary assault through front. Anyone who surrenders gets secured. Anyone who fights gets eliminated. Viper himself, I want him alive if possible. Dead if necessary. But I want this finished tonight. Questions? None. Everyone knew their roles. Everyone had fought beside each other for years. This was what they trained for. What they'd built toward. The assault began at 2:15. Controlled demolition blew the main entrance. Teams poured in through 3 entry points. Gunfire erupted immediately. Viper's people had been ready, waiting, determined to make a final stand. Imani stayed behind the assault teams as promised, but close enough to reach anyone who fell. The firefight was intense, but short. Viper's people were outnumbered 3-1 and had nowhere to run. Most surrendered. A few fought to the end. By 2:30, the upper levels were secure. Sublevels still hot, came the report. Multiple hostiles barricaded in the lower bunker. Viper confirmed to be with them. Ray was about to order the assault when Mrs. Yoon's voice came through on the radio from the safe house. Wait, I'm patching through something you need to hear. Audio feed we intercepted from inside that bunker. The radio crackled. Then Viper's voice, distorted but recognizable. Gas station was my idea from the start. I told Young I was planning to hit her. Told her exactly when and where. Gave her time to set her trap. She wanted someone uncorrupted to mold. I wanted chaos in her organization. We both got what we wanted. That girl, Imani Cross. She was always a pawn. From the very first moment. Neither of you ever had control. We did. Silence. Imani felt ice spread through her veins. The gas station had been a setup. Not just by Mrs. Yoon, but by Viper too. All of it. Every moment of the last 4 months. Orchestrated. Controlled. Manipulated. He's lying, Ray said immediately. Trying to create doubt. To turn us against each other. Am I? Viper's voice came through again, and Imani realized he could hear them, had hacked their communications somehow. Ask Young. Ask her if she knew I was coming that night. If she deliberately walked into that gas station at that specific time, knowing what would happen. Ask her if she chose that location because she'd identified Imani Cross weeks earlier as someone with medical training, financial desperation, and a protective instinct that could be exploited. Go ahead. Ask her. Ray's jaw was tight. Mother, is any of that true? Static. Then Mrs. Yoon's voice, weak but steady. Some of it. I knew Viper was planning an attack. I didn't know he'd told me deliberately as part of a larger scheme. I did identify Imani as someone with the qualities we needed. I did position myself where I knew someone like her would intervene. The gas station wasn't random. But my manipulation was for your benefit, Ray. To find you a true partner. His manipulation was to create chaos. Different goals. Different methods. Same result, Imani said quietly. I was never making real choices. Just choosing between options other people designed for me. That's what being powerless means. Viper's voice was almost gentle now. You think you've gained power these last months? You've just moved from one cage to another. From poverty's cage to Young's cage. You're still trapped. Still controlled. Still dancing to music other people wrote. Shut him down, Ray ordered. Cut the feed. But the damage was done. Imani could feel the truth of it settling into her bones. Every choice she'd made had been predicted, prepared for, manipulated. The wedding. The transformation. Even exposing Sangmi. Had that been her genuine insight or something Mrs. Yoon had guided her toward discovering? How much of the last 4 months had been real and how much had been performance in someone else's play? This changes nothing, Ray said, looking at her directly. Even if the beginning was manipulation, what we've built since is real. The partnership. The trust. That's not fake. That's not. An explosion rocked the building. Not from their teams. From below. Viper had detonated something in the sublevels. Cave in, came the shout from Marcus's team. The whole lower section is collapsing. We need to evacuate now. Everyone started pulling back, but Imani saw something on one of the structural monitors they'd set up. Heat signatures. 2 of them. Trapped in a section that was collapsing but not yet gone. Members of Ray's team who'd pushed too deep, now cut off by falling debris. We've got people trapped, she said, pointing at the monitor. We can't reach them, Tobias said grimly. That whole section is unstable. Going in would just mean more casualties. They're still alive. We can't just leave them. We don't have a choice. The building's coming down. We have maybe 3 minutes before. Imani was already moving, running toward the entrance. She heard Ray shouting behind her, heard Kim trying to catch up, but she was faster. She'd spent 4 months training with some of the most dangerous people in Chicago. She knew how to move. The sublevel was chaos. Dust and smoke and the groaning of metal about to fail. Imani pulled her shirt over her nose and mouth, used the structural map she'd memorized earlier to navigate toward the heat signatures. She found them pinned under a fallen beam. 2 men, both conscious, both bleeding. Come on. We're leaving. Now. She tried to lift the beam. Too heavy. Too massive. Physics didn't care about determination. Then Kim was there, his massive strength making the difference. He lifted the beam enough for the men to crawl free. Go. All of you. I'll hold it. They stumbled toward the exit, Imani supporting one man while the other limped beside them. Behind them, the building groaned and shifted. Not much time. Not nearly enough time. They made it to the stairs just as the sublevel collapsed completely. The shockwave threw them forward. Imani's head hit concrete. Stars exploded across her vision. Strong hands grabbed her, pulled her up, kept her moving even though her legs weren't quite working right. And Kim's voice in her ear, stay with me. Almost there. Stay with me. They burst into the night air 30 seconds before the entire steel mill structure collapsed inward with a roar like the end of the world. Everyone was out. Everyone was safe. But Viper was gone. Buried under thousands of tons of steel and concrete. Dead or trapped, it didn't matter. He was finished either way. Imani sat on the ground, head spinning, tasting blood from where she'd bitten her tongue. Ray was kneeling beside her, checking her pupils, his hands gentle despite his earlier anger. You promised to stay back. I promised to stay behind assault teams. They'd already pulled back. Technically, I kept my promise. You're infuriating. You're welcome. Around them, teams were accounting for personnel. Everyone present. Everyone alive. Some wounded, but none critical. Against all odds, they'd survived. They'd won. But Imani couldn't quite feel victorious. Not with Viper's words still echoing in her head. Not with the knowledge that even her heroic moment at the gas station had been orchestrated by people manipulating her life like chess pieces. Come on, Ray said, helping her stand. Let's go home. Or what's left of it. We'll figure out everything else tomorrow. The convoy back to Chicago was quiet. Exhausted. People processing what they'd survived and what it had cost them. Imani sat beside Malik, who'd been silent since they'd picked him up from the safe house. You ran into a collapsing building, he finally said. Yeah. That was really stupid. Yeah. Also kind of brave. In a stupid way. Imani looked at her brother, saw something in his expression that hadn't been there before. Not forgiveness exactly. Not acceptance. But maybe the beginning of understanding. I'm not asking you to be okay with this, she said quietly. With what I've become. What I've done. But I need you to know that every choice I made, even the bad ones, even the ones I'm not proud of, I made them trying to protect you. That's all I've ever wanted. To keep you safe. To give you chances I never had. Malik was quiet for a long time. Then, I know. I hate it, but I know. And those guys you saved tonight. They have families. People who would have lost them if you hadn't been stupid brave. So maybe you're a criminal now. Maybe you've done bad things. But you also did that good thing. Maybe that's all anyone can do. Try to do one more good thing than bad thing and hope it balances out. It wasn't absolution. But it was something. Enough to keep breathing. Enough to keep going. They reached the safe house just as dawn was breaking over Chicago. Mrs. Yoon was waiting, looking like she'd aged a decade overnight. She pulled Imani aside, away from the others. Viper's accusation. About the gas station. It was partially true. I didn't know he was planning an attack. I did identify you beforehand as someone suitable. But I didn't collaborate with him. I simply used his violence for my own purposes. Does that make me a monster? I don't know, Imani said honestly. Does it matter? You gave me power and prison in equal measure. I'm not sure I can forgive that even if I understand it. I'm not asking forgiveness. I'm dying. I'll face my judgment soon enough. I just wanted you to know that despite the manipulation, despite using you, I came to genuinely care about who you became. That wasn't planned. That wasn't strategy. That was real. She pressed something into Imani's hand. A jade bracelet. This belonged to my mother. To her mother before her. It goes to family. Your family now. Whether by choice or manipulation doesn't matter. Family is family. Mrs. Yoon walked away before Imani could respond, leaving her holding a piece of inheritance from a woman who'd controlled her life and also saved it. Ray found her on the roof as the sun painted Chicago in shades of gold. It's over. Viper's dead. Sangmi's locked up. The organization is secure. We won. Did we? Or did we just survive until the next threat? Is this what the rest of my life looks like? One war after another. Maybe. Probably. This world doesn't grant retirement. He stood beside her, both of them looking at the city that was theirs now, for whatever that was worth. But you don't have to stay. You've proven yourself 100 times over. If you want out, if you want that new identity and $2 million, I'll honor it. No tricks. No threats. Clean break. Imani thought about it. Really thought about it. She could leave. Start over. Become someone new. Leave behind the violence and the guilt and the impossible choices. But she'd also leave behind the power. The ability to protect people. The capacity to make decisions that mattered instead of just surviving whatever circumstances dealt her. She'd spent her whole life powerless. Now she had power. Bloody, complicated, morally ambiguous power. But power nonetheless. I'm staying, she heard herself say. Not because I'm trapped, but because I'm choosing it. This is my empire now too. My responsibility. I'll do it better than the people before me. I'll try to minimize the harm and maximize the good. I'll probably fail more often than I succeed. But at least I'll be trying. That has to count for something. Ray nodded slowly. Then let's build something worth the cost. Together. Actually together this time. Not forced or manipulated. Real partnership. Real choice. He extended his hand. Not as a crime lord offering terms, but as a partner offering equality. Imani looked at it for a long moment, thinking about every path that had led to this roof, this sunrise, this choice. Then she took his hand. Below them, Chicago woke to a new day, unaware that its underworld had just been